Happy Friday, everyone. I hope you're all doing well. Welcome back to another episode of Mom at Home. I'm BJ Morgan with the Museum of Making Music. Today, well, gosh, it's December 11th, 2020 already. I hope everyone's having a wonderful December so far, and we're happy to have you here on Mom at Home. Today, we have very, very special guest. Anne Charbonneau is a composer, arranger, a musical director, and a band leader. She plays piano. She's a keyboardist. She works all across the spectrum of musical instruments and directing, a lot to do with musical theater, acrobatics, and it's just, her career is amazing. She's performed with Cirque Eloize, Cirque du Soleil, Jersey Boys, MJ Live, the world's greatest rock show. Her career is expansive, and it's an area which I personally don't have a lot of knowledge in, and I'm excited to learn so much about what it takes to be a musical director and all these hats that Anne wears. And with us today also we have Mr. Bill, who will be guiding our conversation. Hello, welcome Anne and Mr. Bill. How are you today?
Hi, BJ.
Hey.
Hello.
Hi, BJ. Thank you. And Anne, thank you. Welcome to our show.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Absolutely. We're so glad to have you here. And you have the distinction of being our very last Mom at Home in the year 2020. So add that to your add that to the feathers in your cap. So Anne, you and I met, I want to say about 8, 9 years ago, actually at the Museum of Making Music. I was working in the galleries and you were walking through looking around, and we struck up a conversation, of course, about music, in which you said you were involved with Cirque du Soleil. And I said, okay, you have my full attention because I'd seen some of those shows, am amazed at what I've seen and heard. And I knew right then and there that I wanted to talk about this more someday. So here we are. So before we jump all the way into Cirque, though, you wrote a great quote in the notes that you sent me beforehand. You said, music chose me. And that speaks directly to the Museum of Making Music. Could you tell us that story? How did music choose you, Anne?
Well, it just happened. I mean, I was born, there was a piano in the house. My parents both loved music, not professional musicians, but my mom studied piano to a quite advanced level. And my dad played guitar a little bit, but I mean, there was a piano there. So first thing you knew, it's like the first time I ever stood up by myself was after the leg of the piano like this. And I was 3 pounds and 1 ounce when I was born. So I was little for a long time when I was little. So, but, always found the piano, and I grew up, it was my world. Like whatever is happening, this is my world, that and being outside. And
so really the piano literally chose you. The piano said, come to me, here we are, and off we go.
Yeah, it was just natural. I was just drawn to that thing, I guess. And it's just, I felt home sitting at a piano, and didn't have a teacher for, took a little while. But, it's like discovering the world, discovering through the piano, and this note works with that one, and this one, oh, not so much. And so it's
and that's, and it's a lifetime of discovery, isn't it, Anne?
oh yeah, I have projects and passions for at least 3 lifetimes. There's so much to discover and enjoy.
Amen. And so many musicians have to go through sort of a few instruments. I'll try this for a while, I'll try that for a while. But it really sounds like right off the bat, you knew that the piano was the instrument that spoke to your heart.
Yeah. I always have been curious about anything that makes music. Anyway, so whatever instrument that ever came in my hands or I could touch, or, of course I had fun with it. But the piano, was my heart.
Right off the bat, your heart. And 'cause I do see a couple of guitars in the background there. So you're playing those as well?
Yeah, a little. And this is on the road. I walked in the music store in Philadelphia. I saw that I was okay, this
Is that a
it's like
ukulele bass? Is that a U bass? That is the coolest thing ever.
it's a ukulele bass, but with real strings. That one, and yeah, it's just tuned like a four string bass, and I love it. You know, it's the kind of thing that you can carry
Mm.
around. It was like I was like, you know, you need toys in your hotel room. You're on the road the whole time.
And then when you get home, you've got them. You've got them forever. So
Yeah, exactly.
another thing I saw in your bio, Ann, it said you've been performing actually since the age of 5. So
Oh yeah.
pretty quickly after that piano called you, you got going. Do you have any memories of those early performances?
Yeah, it's funny. You know, I didn't play anything like spectacular necessarily, but I was just that little short, little tiny girl, and you know, it was just natural for me to go there, and every opportunity, concert or whatever there was, I was like, here I was. And I remember that day when the teacher asked me, because I was wearing slippers, and she's like, it's not slippery when you like on the pedals of the piano with slippers. And I answered, I cannot touch the pedals, ma'am. I cannot reach them. You know, that it was a reality. I was way too small, too little. Took me a while to reach the pedals.
But did you have that little extender unit? Were you saying where you can actually get to the pedals? There's a box that I've seen that allow children to get to the pedals.
Oh yeah, I guess we didn't explore. Parents didn't explore that. I mean, I grew up. I mean, it, yeah, I reached them pretty quickly.
It
But
sounds like you guys made do with what you had. Yeah.
yeah,
That necessity is always the mother of invention in music, and if there's a need, you'll find a way to meet that need. So
yeah,
now, you said you didn't have lessons right away, but I imagine eventually you did start to study or maybe listen to other players. I think yesterday you mentioned one of your teachers just really opened up your world when the teacher said, "Do what you want, follow your
yeah,
yes."
exactly. Yeah, well, I was born in Ottawa. Actually, grew up on the countryside between Ottawa and Montreal, and it was small schools and small high schools, and now they have music programs since a while. But back then, like we didn't have music programs at the school, and but there was theater, and my theater teacher, like, we're still in touch today. You know,
Hmm.
he's totally and my biggest supporter. And but I remember back then, you know, I was just attracted by theater as well, everything around music. Um, but of course, like I had music in my heart, and but I didn't know anyone who was making a living or anything. It's and one day he's like, you know, Anne, no matter what else in the world, you gotta do what you want to do, what you in your heart, what is there, that's what you have to follow.
Hmm.
And yeah, it's you will remain special, you know. Yeah, a good friend. And actually, he and his wife were in Vegas a few years ago, and I told him a few things like that, how much it had an impact in my life and positive impact. And
And I think nothing would be more rewarding to a teacher and and a mentor to see their words, A, see their words taken to heart, and B, see the person that took those words to heart, as you did, have a very successful career because of that. So,
yeah,
it's a great circle for both of you there, really.
yeah,
Mentorship and following that. Now, as you got into the Cirque environment, I think you mentioned also there was somebody in that world. Could you tell us about your mentor in the Cirque world?
yeah. Well, I landed in the Cirque world by coincidences, I guess I could say. We might talk about it later. But yeah, I was blessed. Like my first Cirque gig ever, I was actually filling in for the band leader
Hmm.
on a small show in Montreal at La Ronde, the amusement park. And she had just returned from 6 years with Cirque du Soleil then, and as band leader, and had gone through creation and all that stuff. And she was composing the music for that small show. And but it was like 10 weeks, 7 days a week, 5 30-minute show a day. And she was like, with the schedule I've been doing for a while, I'm not doing all of that myself. So I ended up in touch with her. Someone put me in touch with her, and it's like, for me, it was a world revealing itself. And I'm very thankful that I had a great teacher and mentor. She was very precise, very conscientious, and I had a great teacher.
So in her way of being precise and conscientious, you were really learning, not necessarily a formal study, but you were learning by watching this person engage in their profession, and that became sort of maybe the blueprint for you that you followed.
Yeah, like the attention to details, of how like music and visual come together to at the end have a whole greater than the sum of its parts. Just very aware and conscientious in that way, how the music follows the different intensities and the relationships with the different acrobats and performers. And I learned that way, and it actually spoke to me. I'm naturally like this, I care about people. It's like we do that as a living, but I think we know in 2020 more than ever how the human side of things too, and connect with people, and we work together. But it's important to the human side is as important, if not even more sometimes.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely true. Yeah. I've long said that I would choose to work with a musician who might not be quite of the caliber of some others if their human side is where it needs to be, right? Because we're working closely together, and if somebody's not being a good human, it's not going to be a good work experience. So when you had this experience at La Ronde Amusement Park, pardon me if I butchered that.
Close enough. La Ronde. La Ronde.
You gave me this great descriptive. You described that as a talent and a sixth sense that you didn't know you had. Which you should write a book of prose, Anne, because the way you put words together, very, very nice. So is that what led to your interest in further playing for Cirque du Soleil?
Well, about the same time, or I believe it's like right before or right after, my phone rang someday, and it's like, "Hi, Anne, it's Cirque du Soleil," and I was, "What?" Because it's right before. I was we, because it's like, I was not aware that as a musician you can. There's life around Cirque. There's live musicians around those things, and so. But back then, someone had given my name, someone who had never worked for Cirque actually, but through contacts, they were looking for a keyboard player for a tour that was going to Japan, a second keyboard player, and they were not sure how. They were like, are we hiring a second keyboard player, or we're gonna have like that other person in the band cover some keyboard parts, or they were not sure how they were gonna dispatch all the musical parts. And it turned out that they were not hiring a second keyboard player. So, but all that at the same time, like, to me, it was like, wow, it's like all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, there's all that possible that I was not aware of. And so I had that first gig with a great mentor, and it was, I just loved it, you know, and it was a passion, and it was, you know, when you realize, wow, this is fun, this is easy for me, and it's just a fun crowd to be around as well. Yeah, I like that. I really like that. And to come back to Cirque, actually, it's a couple years later, like shortly after that La Ronde gig, kind of through the same contacts, but I ended up getting a call to work with Cirque Eloize. And the band leader, musical director, keyboards, was leaving the tour. So they needed someone. And yeah, so I ended up on Cirque Eloize.
You know, the only answer to any question in the music biz is yes, right, Anne? They say,
Yeah, the answer is yes. Yeah.
can you be here tomorrow morning, start rehearsals, and play the show tomorrow night? The only answer is
It's like, sure, yeah. That's what I meant to say. When I was at Cirque Eloize, touring with Cirque Eloize, actually, Cirque du Soleil had called me a few times, but I was with Eloize, and I first I have a contract, and sometimes you're like, this is where I gotta be right now. I'm not done here. And I think that's something as human beings that sometimes we fear to ask ourselves the question, because if the answer is I'm done, you know, it means it's time to move on. But yeah, so I was just like at Cirque Eloize, and they called me 3 times while I was at Cirque Eloize for different positions, different shows. And so it just ended, like that tour ended. I just gave them a call, and they happened like that morning, they had received a fax that back then we had fax. And they needed to replace a keyboard player on the O show. So things just like unfolded, you know, one after the other. It's in my environment for a while.
really fell into place for you there.
Yeah.
That's you know, and there's something to be said for sort of putting them off 2 or 3 times, because that makes it a little more critical that they get a hold of this. Well, she's got to be pretty happening because she's so busy. She's saying no to us right now. And you sent us some wonderful photos, sort of showing you in action, and I'd like to sort of screen those as we continue talking about Cirque, if that's okay with you. All right. So, you know, there's a lot of things that happen during a live show. And you sent me some of those that, boy, they had me quite fascinated. So tell us what would be unique, unique and typical of running a Cirque show, as far as things going right, as far as things maybe not going right.
Yeah, well, the thing is with those shows, like we follow them a whole lot, like especially like the highly acrobatic act. Like we have, the music is structured. We know where we're going, like in a normal scenario. But it's a lot of open sections. And then so there are some acts, and they're my favorite actually, the highly acrobatics, when you're on the edge of your seat and you watch them. And so yeah, we're like, and the band knows, you know, it's like you vamp on this until you hear like 3/4, then you go to the next section, and then when you'll hear 3/4 again, then the next section. And so we tightly follow them, like with acrobatics. And you know, sometimes and normally that's something we agree on ahead of time, like, and if an acrobat, like let's say, misses a trick, is the person going to redo it or not redo it? And then we have a plan for that too. And of course, sorry, of course, you know, anything can happen. You know, you wish that you wish that there's no injuries, ever. But every show that I've been on, like we had some serious injuries. But if it's like a major injury, they will stop the show and then you just keep breathing. And, praying for them. It's like, sometimes it's quite challenging emotionally. But sometimes, technical stuff that for whatever reason, like will not go as expected. So, and your job as a band leader, you do your best so that everything looks like it was planned. So sometimes, like, repeating sections or on the spot, it might happen like that we're gonna skip an act for whatever reason. Actually, with Emaluna, the show being in a big top, you are, Mother Nature is the boss. That's how it goes. And so we could start a show, and all depending, there was someone monitoring to make sure that there was not above a certain percentage of lightning, example, within a certain radius. And so if it was coming a little too close, that there could be the slightest chance for safety reasons, it was like in a big top like this, like skipping acts or doing modified versions of acts. So there's a lot, and we're all human. I remember like in one act, like they had a routine, but their own act has many figures, and for them it changes. It varies a lot from a show to the next. And I remember one time, and I was like, oh, "What's going on?" And I hear stage management, "Yes, and they skipped one," or something like that. So then you're like, okay, we'll wait for something worded like there's a punch, or it could be a punch. So skip the section with a punch. And anyways, you just like, you do your best. But you know what? The audience doesn't know that stuff. No, it's just us sometimes, like, your brain is like, what could I do? All your senses.
That's when all your skills are called to the fore, Anne, because you're on the edge of your seat. You're trying to cover for something, like you say. The audience may not necessarily know, but you certainly know there's something going on.
Yeah, the audience generally doesn't know, even if in our minds we're like, oh my God, that was like, ooh. The audience, I mean, we got to know the show so well. We know exactly like, and we like things to be exactly like a certain way, but the show goes on. It's the nature of Cirque or not Cirque. We all know that the show goes on. Show must go on.
Absolutely true. It's live theater, and you don't get to stop and say, we want to regroup and redo that one, folks.
Yeah, let's think about it. And I could add actually, in big tops, there's some things that can be a little funny sometimes. Like in Winnipeg, we had a snowstorm October 10th last year. It was so cold, started putting heaters for performers that needed to warm up in small suits. And so the power went down during a show. We had to stop the show. Another time in Philadelphia, a couple hours before a show, lightning hit the main mat of the big top. I will always remember that moment. It was like so loud. And then it's like, when you realize like what's happening, it's like, okay, let's just get out the big top. You let the people on the show responsible for that, you let them handle it, and you just wait for your cue. What's that?
Wow. That had to be an experience like no other, because when lightning hits, the thunder is right there with it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it's I guess I was gonna say it's kind of similar. No, that's not similar. I'm a backpacker, so sometimes you're in your tent and there are similarities. And you hear the thunder, and you're like, okay, it will pass.
I guess the main difference is that when you're hiking in the mountains, you don't have a full band and an audience full of people that you have to be concerned with when that
No,
hits.
exactly, and there's no main mat to to catch the thunder, the lightning. Safer now.
Wow. I mean, it sounds like the adventures that happened unplanned were just about equally as exciting as the adventures that were happening on stage and in the orchestra pit. One thing we didn't talk about, and if you'd rather not, I certainly understand, but you say there were some mishaps out on the stage, and certainly we're always sorry to hear if somebody gets injured while they're performing. But how about in the pit, in the bandstand? Any sort of going off the rails there that might happen on occasion?
No,
Perfect answer. Plead the fifth.
no, never. Yeah, well, I guess we all like it perfect. We're all human though, and yeah, but the thing is too, it's as a band leader, if and especially a show like Emaluna where there was so many calls that stage management were relying on, lights were relying on, other than like the band relying on as well. It's like if I was doing something just a little bit different, like there was always someone waiting for me, at least one person waiting for me after the show. It's like, oh man, what happened? It's like if I do the slightest goof, I mean the audience doesn't notice those things, it's like, but we're all a bunch of humans working together, so it's like if I just a little bit, the whole building knows it. So I guess it comes with the gig, and you learn to laugh at yourself, I think.
You have to,
Yeah,
because if you take it too seriously, then it's going to start to each up. But you
yeah,
know,
that was a big learning for me, to not, you know, not take myself too seriously, because
right? Yeah,
like,
as you say, the audience just doesn't see this. And bottom line is, they pay their money, they come to see a show,
yeah,
and as far as they're concerned, wow, that was great from A to Z, and they don't know all the little things that are going on. And what you're describing sounds as if that there's so many cues coming at you. It's a really well-oiled machine, and it's pretty amazing that it all clicks in as well as it does.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's we're all working together, and every little piece is essential to the whole. That's for sure.
Absolutely. I do want to talk about creating Zumanity here in just a minute. But Anne, if we could take a question, would that be okay?
Yeah, sure.
All righty. I have Patricia from Argentina.
Mhm.
Patricia asks, I want to know what is the thing that you consider most important in a Soleil performance, the melody or the rhythm? If you have to compose a scene, or it depends on what the general director asks you to compose. She says, thanks from Argentina. I'm a pianist. I worked as a musician in a very famous circus here in 1997. So you have a sister in arms here asking the questions.
Yeah, yeah. And one of our guitar players is actually from Cordoba, Argentina.
Awesome.
Yeah. Hi, Argentina. I'll go visit. Well, every situation is unique. It's really like case by case, and it depends as well what kind of relationship you're looking between the music and the visual, because sometimes some acts will call more for like background music, atmosphere, kind of music flowing and the act flowing, but sometimes it will be really more like acrobatic stuff where we really tightly follow them, like where the action is intense, and when it's more like preparation for a big trick, that when we'll be vamping and So will be really more background music, so that when they do their big punch, it's we're doing the big punch at the same time of them as them. So as far as like melody, I would say it's like every act is unique, and it really depends on the specific situation. And that's one thing as well. It's that, of course, like musically speaking, we always want the music to be like musically like the best possible. But sometimes, because of how the action, how it's unfolding on stage, sometimes that's one thing that I learned quickly, is that what's going on is calling for, well, maybe I can give a little bit on the music. And in some situations, like musicians sometimes tell me, well, but it would be more musical to do this. And I'm like, no, we need to give a little bit here, so that the action going on when the big punch happens will be so together that what we lost here, at the end, we will be here. We will have gained so much more than the tiny bit that we have lost. And musically, we're like, oh, that's a little less musical. I mean, the whole picture is so much stronger than the tiny bit that you gave. You're gaining it like tenfold, you know.
So really, give and take is paramount. I understand exactly what you're saying. Sometimes it might not be the most musical decision, but for the big picture overall, it is the right decision.
Yeah, and at the end, you will be stronger musically as well, because the visual and music will have stronger together, I guess. You know?
I don't know if this is a parallel, but it reminds me of, being a musician ourselves, Mr. Bill and I, we've had different times when we've had to perform under live situations, but you'll get the one person who wants to come up and sing karaoke with your band, but they'll skip the second verse and they'll go right to the chorus. You have to make a decision. Either you're going to follow them and just make it a good show for them, or you're just going to, forge ahead. And for musicality, I'm trying to parallel it in my own experiences. I'm like, that makes a lot of sense to me, what you just said. I'm like, if you forget a whole verse, you kind of have to make the show happen, regardless of what musically is supposed to, what you want to do and what you want to create. So I get that. Thank you for explaining that.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's a perfect example, BJ, because you could hold on to your musicality and say, no, the second verse comes
This
here.
is where it is.
Yeah, but in the result, it will not work.
Yeah.
Versus if you.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. I get what you're saying.
Right. Yeah. The result is you've trashed the performance. So absolutely, always go with what's best for the overall picture. So now Zoomanity, Anne, you were saying was quite a ride to put together. I'd love it if you'd share that story. You said the first couple of months were crazy. Changes in the show. You were tasked with quite a bit. Could you tell us the story of putting Zoomanity together?
Yeah, it was a unique experience in my life, I could say. It was, very intense, very, very intense schedules. And the theater, like I guess any show of the kind that's like new, you can have a lot of technical issues too. So, but when the show opens, I mean, it's always like the show is ready, but it's still, there's a lot of headroom to improve things. And so, especially like we had what they call the soft opening, and like things were changing pretty much like every show. And I remember one time it was so funny because at the end of like the second act, there was a big thunder triggered by, I believe, the drummer on a drum pad. And with all the changes that were going on, last minute that day, the director asked, let's remove that thunder. And I think it was like the second show that night, that second act, and I went, thunder, go. And just as he was hitting it, I was like, thunder was removed, you know. And after the show, I run into the director of the show. He was laughing, you know. He was like, "And you're doing miracles here." I was exhausted, and yeah, it was just, you know, quite funny things like that. And yeah, at Cirque, normally there are like composers, and then your band leader. At Cirque Eloize, I did both at some point as new musics were needed and changes of acrobats. But on Zumanity, so that there was a composer, but as far as linking the music with the visual. So that's what I did on the show as well. So it's like you look at the acts and you have the music, and it's just like to size, like when the music should be here, when it should be there, when it might go longer, and sometimes you don't expect it that they will take longer for whatever trick. And so as we go along, it's like, okay, this section needs to become open. And sometimes it's like, well, they're always the same, so we can say like that section will always be 8 bars, example. And the fun thing too, it's like to, of course, like when you work together day after day, you get to know the people and how they react to the music. And it's funny because there was that one place in one act that it's called dislocation. It's kind of genre of contortion, but it's a discipline in itself, and there's only a few people in the world who are able to do that. And it was like phenomenal, those guys. But so I worked the music, which that song was more like loops and things like that, so I worked all of that. It's like, so we had a lot of breaks in the music, and when he was accomplishing his tricks, like bring his 2 legs, like some ways, then it was 3-4, and we go with him. So a lot of breaks, and the music starting over again, continuing like this. But there was that one place, and I'm like, how come I'm tight with him all the way except that one place? And then I realized one day, you know, like for us musicians, if the music comes to a stop and then you have just like a little loop playing in the background, and then you hear like 3, 4, 1, the music, the band comes back in on 1. So if there's a snare like 3, 4, 1, you know, it's like the snare on the 4 for us, that's not where the music starts again. It's a pickup. The music starts on the 1, on the downbeat. But when he was hearing the snare, he was rushing to get his trick. And I was like, how come he's always ahead of me? So one day I kindly asked the drummer, no more snare there. He was, yeah, but that's no more snare. I asked no more snare, and I was always tight with him afterwards. So it's just those little tricks that are fun.
Right. And you know what? That's another example of we have to give up the sort of maybe the more musical thing, where, you know, we have that snare hit on beat 4 to give us a cue to come in, because that's throwing off the performer. So let's, for the best performance, make that choice. Now, Anne, I think I may have told you that the Museum of Making Music, we're going through a complete renovation right now. And as such, we've got a great training program going. Our volunteers are learning things about music production, the world of music, that, you know, were heretofore unknown to them. And one of the areas we covered was MIDI. And I know at a certain point, a program called Ableton Live came into play with your shows. and you had sent me a photo of the keyboard setup that you have. So I'd like to share that if we could, and maybe you can give us a rundown of what we're seeing. Because the keyboard has quite a bit of writing on it, and maybe you can tell us where that takes us. And you also said you wanted to give a shout out to the people who designed that show, so please take this opportunity to give them a shout.
Yeah, absolutely. Because there's so much work. I mean, those files are enormous. And yeah, but I absolutely want to give a big shout out to Janine De Lorenzo, who was the original band leader for Emma Luna, and Brenda Coward and Rachel Wood, who came before me on that show. I joined on the 8th year, the last year of the show. So, but on yeah, it's Ableton is that's what it's used now, like throughout all of Cirque shows. And basically it's everything is backed up. Everything with a click. We have a click running all the time. And rare few times that cannot be done with a click, like we figure out like if there's a problem with the gear or a microphone, or someone is sick, cannot do the show. So we back up just everything in the computer that way. And as well, like there will be some, all depending on what kind of show it is, like Emma Luna was a show where, let's say, there are two girls doing the unicycle. So, but if it never happened, but you're like, okay, what if one is sick, like at 5 minutes from the show? So we had a solo unicycle version, which was programmed somewhere else in the file. So we use the Ableton. We use a keyboard or pedal board, and or depending, I'm a keyboard player, so I like keyboard, but like guitar players or bass players will like a pedal board often, or a combination of both. And yeah, so basically, like with all of those open sections, like we call that scenes. So you have the whole show, one scene after the other, the different sections of every act. And so the keyboard is basically, can I show my little keyboard I did here? This is not what we use live, but I just thought I would use my little Sensal controller here to do a little part of the keyboard. I'll try to see that.
Yeah.
So as you can see, it's like we have the transport at the bottom. It's like opposite, right? No?
No, that's right. Yeah, I could see play and up and down and stop, and you got the click track.
Yeah, so we have like play stop, and stop transport. We have moving up and down the scenes. So that those you learn very quickly, and you don't need to look at those after. You just know where they are, on and off. And then these are just acts. Like if there's an act that is cut because of a last minute issue, or we need to do alternate versions, it's like we have shortcuts to different scene. It's like shortcut to the water bowl here, and here a shortcut if there's no water bowl. It's a different version. And that show we had one backup act, which was Rue Sear. So we normally knew it at the beginning of the show if that was going to be used, but not necessarily. So anyways, there's shortcuts for everything, but mainly we use these first ones here. So lots of fun.
Yeah. Now, when you're loading a scene together, what elements are put into a scene? Like, is it the instruments that are being used? Is it the different sound effects? What is everything that goes into like one of those scenes? Like just like the storm coming.
Well, it's the whole band is backed up,
Oh, okay.
and there will be additional tracks often. And at some point when I got on the show, all one of the guitar players, she was right in front of me, all of her changes, program changes, were programmed as well.
Wow.
The file. Yeah.
And you mean all of her pedalboard program changes were being driven by Ableton?
Yeah, like all her effects and all that stuff.
And
Yeah,
and
it was.
you're just all going, you're going right along with that click, and everything that happens in time, and you're calling it out and just keeping that ship on course for the rest of the program. That's amazing. That's just everything you're managing at any one given time is just, it boggles my mind how much you have to work on and are using this technology to help out and make it happen. That's really, really cool.
Yeah, and Ableton is, I mean, there's so many things you can do with that program. It's like what I'm explaining here, it's how the file was, the sats were designed for a Maluna, but I know of, like, I've seen two different shows, Cirque shows, their show files, two other, like a third and a fourth show. I have a good idea how they were set up, and all four of them, like the thinking behind that is different. So
Yeah.
there's as many ways to do it as there are minds.
That's cool. It's so awesome to have the tools to be able to do that and use them the way that you need them to work for your show, for your end goal. That's just amazing. That's so cool.
It is, and as we were sort of discussing yesterday, the three of us, we all learn the part of the program that we need to know. But as you say, Ableton Live can do so much. But in that instance, you need to learn that much. BJ may learn a bit of Digital Performer, this much for something. I'll learn Finale, this much for something. But the world that these programs open up is just stunning. It's mind-boggling, right? So,
Yeah,
and Cirque du Soleil was very kind to offer to let us show some clips from some shows. And that was redundant. Sorry about that. Play some clips for some shows. And so I did pick three of the ones that you sent me, and I'd love to have you sort of give us a little preface as to what we're seeing, and then maybe we can discuss it a little bit afterwards. And what I love is hearing you give the cues to the band while these clips are playing. So we're going to start out with one titled Amazon's Uneven Bar 3, if you want to give us a little preface to that one.
yeah. And before I forget, all of those videos on what we are gonna listen to this afternoon, there is no click, but we musicians have a click. Absolutely, we need a click. That was the feed from stage management. That's why at some point you will hear someone else like giving some other non-musical information because it was the stage management feed. So normally I hear only from stage management what I need to hear. So the Amazons, actually, they were characters in the show. They were like, in the story of the show, Amaluna is an island, and they're like the guardians of the island. And it was the first time that Cirque was having a uneven bar act in the show. So, and their act is highly acrobatic, and their lineups change like every show. So, but in the way that they have like 6 main figures that we follow as the band, the music. And in those 6 main ones, it's like the first one, there's 3 of the 8 or 9 girls that can do it. The second one, there's 2. The third one, there's like 5 girls. So, but all their tricks vary a little bit, sometimes greatly from one another. So it keeps you like on the edge of your seat, like I said. It's just so fun when you get it like 3, 4, and it's like right on there. So, and what we are gonna watch is the last acrobatic trick of that act. and that's ending Act 1 actually. So there the dismounts. Sometimes there are 4, sometimes there are 3, and sometimes the last one will be single or double. So that's why, as the music was going along, I was giving a standby, so that the drummer, everyone knows, like, okay, this will be the last one. We're waiting for a 3/4 after that. So, and then I was watching her, like, when she was like, here, like 3/4, when she lands. So, yeah.
All right.
So we go ahead with that.
Here we go.
Stand by. Three, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4.
That is the coolest thing. Oh my gosh.
You know what, Anne? I just got major chills up and down my spine because that was right on the mark.
Oh yeah, you know, it's such a feeling when you're like right on it. I was chatting with the previous band leader last week, and she was like, "Oh, Amazons was my fave," and I'm like, "Me too."
That's definitely a yeah moment for you and the whole band and the performers. So we have another clip, and please help me with this word. Battle into.
Barbican. Barbican is the that's how they call the acrobatic discipline of the act that follows. And so that battle is a transition between the juggling act and the Barbican act, and it's all to like in the story of the show. So we will see like the bad guy, who's the one doing the juggling act. And then we have the 2 main characters of the show, the couple. So there's a young girl and the young man. And so they get into a battle, that bad guy and the guy. So, and on what we will be seeing, I picked that one because there are actually many of my cues are for the band, but many of my cues are as well for the lights. So many times you'll see like a 3, 4, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in that case, because it's in 5/4. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you'll see the lights change on the downbeat. So they were picking up a lot of cues, and so there will be the cue for there's guitar go. So when I'm following them on stage, so there's the young woman coming to the guy, there's a guitar go, and that's as she walks away, it's like fade out. And then I give, because the following thing is in 5/4. So when I started on the downbeat, I give a 2, 3, 4, 5. But that first count, there's a tom on 4, 5, because that is the cue for the 2 acrobats to start running, to be in front of the stage on time for so start 2, 3, 4, 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the band kicks in with the action, and you see the lights changing, and then I count at the end of the battle and the transition into the Barbican. And at some point you will see as well, there's that little trap that opens on stage for the bad guy to be thrown in. So all those cues, they're relying on my calls to say, give the go for the trap to open, to close, and all of that stuff. So that little scene, there is a lot going on for everybody.
Awesome. I'm ready to watch this. This sounds cool. All right, here we go.
1, 2, 3, 4, snare. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Guitar go. Head up. 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. One, two, three, four, five. F2, 3, 4. Drum fill, 3, 4. Band, 3, 4.
Wow, yeah. That's the coolest thing. It's just drum fill go, guitar go. I'm like, what? It's just amazing. Oh, sorry, it's my things. Yeah, there we go. Wow, so cool, so cool.
It, I'm like BJ. I'm amazed. I love being a sideman. I love having someone say
Yeah.
go, but I don't know if I'd want to be in the captain's chair there. But as I was watching this again, because I previewed them before today, the music choices were so perfect too. With the bad guy, it's got this kind of dark, almost metal edge. And then when they finally vanquish him, the music kind of lightens up and everybody's going, we can breathe again.
Yeah, it's two guys from Montreal, two friends who actually wrote the music of the show. Did an absolutely awesome job, on the writing, on the arrangements as well. And actually, like couple months after I had barely just joined the show, that the director was there one night, and she was, like beginning of that act, I think we should invert, like when she goes with the ball over him, and another movement. Anyways, she was like, this should be inverted. It's like, sometimes you've been doing things like 7 years, the same thing, but so I had to rework the music, and it's then that I figured out, like, okay, I need to give a cue for this, cue for that, and then acrobats needed a cue, so then it was, okay, let's put a floor tom here, let's give 2 bar counts instead of 1, and so it all came together, and that's the way it was, like, it went from like really good to even better.
Awesome.
So,
and as you said, you'd been playing it the same way for 7 years, but shaking it up a little bit like that, it gives us a new freshness, and as you just said, it made it even better. So, why not keep polishing that a little bit more, and man, it just keeps getting better. Well, we have one more clip to show, Anne, and we are coming up on the hour, so I want to be respectful
yes, absolutely.
of your time. But if you could give us a little preview of Teeterboard and tell us what we're going to see.
Yeah, Teeterboard. So that's again, it's the discipline that's called a Teeterboard. So we had those guys doing those like totally crazy things, and but we had an agreement, like what the trick was gonna be and who was gonna do it. So, and in what we are gonna watch, there's Danny. Danny does the 2 tricks, and he happens to be the main one in the main characters of the show. So we just saw him like throwing the bad guy in the hole. So before that in the show, theater board. So I watched Danny for the 2 tricks. And the first one that will be on that segment, my cue is when I see the 3 guys getting on top of the platform, I know that Stand By Danny is jumping. And that specific place, if because it's like such incredible feat, such like amazing things that they do. Sometimes how he was landing, he had to jump down and redo it. So I was always like watching him. So that's why right after he does that, there's another cue that was there just because I had to tell the band to go back or to keep going. So, and in this case, he landed properly. So we keep going. So I give the next cue and we move on with the music. And then right after that, there's another trick that he does. And then we have a clown tag, which is because it's so demanding physically what they're doing, those guys, they needed to have a little break in like 2/3 into their act. So in the story, they're bringing the clowns there. So
cool.
That's what we'll see.
Here we go.
One, two, three, four. Three, four. Clown tag. 3, 4.
Awesome too. And I mean, I'd seen this clip too, and now seeing it again with fresh eyes, I'm noticing the musicians now in the wings. I'm like, look at all those musicians. They're just spread out across the entire thing. And the djembe player, I'm like, that's because I hear it. I'm like, where's that coming from? And then I see the musician. I'm like, oh, so cool. Just there's so much going on in any given situation. It's amazing. I have a question. How much, like when you're doing these shows, what? Because you have a lot of musicians that use different techniques to perform, like between memorization, between notation, between reading music, everything. What tools do you use going through a show? Like, how much do you have memorized? How much are you reading? How much have you? Like, what are all the tools that you're using when you're directing these shows?
Yeah, well, a lot of the charts were done in Finale, some in Sibelius. Personally, I use Sibelius, major notation software. And but at that point, the girls, it was an all-female band in that show. The girls like long knew the show by heart. In my case, there's like so many things. I had my charts next to me. I had my iPad, and I actually had a hard copy because technology that never fails. You make sure you have a hard copy. And yeah, and if I can throw in a few words too on the setup, like we have two computers running in sync. So if one fails, it's just a switch and you switch with the other one. So that worked well. And other than that one time that the issue with the computer delayed the play anyways, like, so the computers ended up not being exactly in sync.
Oh, wow.
So it was a little terrible. We call it, you do your best. I mean, you're at the mercy sometimes of outside things, and you do your best, and nobody claimed their money. They all love the show. If I can add something too that I thought was interesting, I realized at some point when my assistant was calling the show, because it's such an important position, like every position, you need to have backup plans for like just everything. So every here and there, I could watch the show from the audience, and which is great because I could see like the whole picture. And sometimes you're like, okay, we can improve this, improve that. But I realized how there was a delay in the big top, because it's not like resident shows. Some shows like example in Las Vegas have such a sophisticated, there's speakers in every seat.
Yeah.
But a big top, it's not the case. Like, so there's like the sound delays a little bit. So I realized that in acts like Tito Board, particularly, if I had the choice of being a little ahead, because sometimes they jump between downbeats. It's just the nature of it. I realized someday that if I had the choice between being a little bit ahead or a little bit later, it was better that it was a little bit ahead. But that's very that's a personal fun thing. It's nobody notices anything. It just seems just together for them, but for me, it's like that thing.
Well,
that's that musical fine tuning that you would notice, and again the audience wouldn't notice. And as you were saying that, Anne, I got to thinking, well, maybe all teeterboard artists should be drummers because they're always going to know where the beat is. What do you think, BJ? You want to start?
I am not getting up on a teeterboard anytime soon, so they can continue on with their work there. I'm happy where I am behind a kit. So.
You know, and watching those acrobatic artists, I mean, I think we could spend another hour just talking about all the training that they must go to get to that point to where they're putting on the show. It's just mind-boggling to me. And we are over the hour, and I want to thank you. But before we let you go, I know you have some other projects in the works, and I want to make sure everybody knows about those. You've got a couple albums. You've got a recipe book and some environmental programs. So, if you want to share those with us, and you sent me the links, so BJ will get those up on your Mom at Home listing as well, so people can find them. But tell us what else you have going.
Yeah, I'm working. It's been a big project going on since a few years. I'm creating the recipes for a dessert book.
Ooh.
And it came long story short, through some limitations I had, dietary changes I had to do, and because of being curious and because the creative mind, like I say, sometimes you don't put a creative mind in the closet, it's just there all the time. So in the kitchen, I am having a blast. And my thrill always have been, how can I make something super healthy? And really delicious and easy to make. So, and after seeing countless people, because I've been bringing samples for years on my hikes, on shows, and so many people on their knees begging me for recipes, then I was like, well, I guess there's a message there. So I started working on that book. And it's like all of the above, there's no book out there that is it's vegan, but it's really for everyone. You don't need to be, it's really, really accessible. It's easy to make. It's gluten-free. There's no sugar added. There's 0 empty calories, only healthy fats in a reasonable amount. So I'm having a lot of fun. It's a lot of time. It's a big project, but thanks to the pandemic, right? It will be published sometime in 2021. So, and I'm as well a passionate hiker. I have an unofficial hiking group in Las Vegas. We're all performers on different shows that I ended up bringing together, and they're some awesome friends. We spend hours on the trails, and of course, I love the planet. of the planet a lot. And I have a special thing with cutting down single-use plastic. So, and I'm all for, I started a Facebook group like where we can share ideas on how to be better stewards of the planet. And I do trail repair. There's one trail in particular, like a segment of the trail that it's me maintaining it. And it's, I just love it. It's just so, it brings a lot. It's in my soul. It's gotta be there. And it's all part, all those projects are like kind of one big thing all together in some ways. It's like the creativity, and when you're like, okay, I need, I have music to write, and I'm not inspired today. It's like, okay, why not go to the mountains? I always return with inspiration. I always return with so much. I don't have problems anymore. Everything is good. I'm happy. Yeah. So.
And your passion for everything you do is so inspiring. I can't think of a better way to have ended this year's Mom at Home series. Thank you. And as I said, we have your links on the website on your Mom at Home listing. People can find your Facebook, your everything you have. It'll be there. So I want to thank you on behalf of, musicians the world over, not only for your passion as a musician, but for what you brought to the Cirque du Soleil world that is such a gift to all of us. So thank you. Thank you for your time this afternoon.
You're welcome. I'm honored. Thanks for having me.
Excellent. Anne and Bill, thank you so much. Wonderful interview today. Citizen Dave just mentioned that he truly enjoyed today's interview, and then Patricia had very big kudos for both of you. So with that, we end another episode of Mom at Home, the final Mom at Home for 2020. We got more in store for the beginning of next year. We'll be posting those to our website shortly. Upcoming on the horizon, though, I know we have at least one more event coming up before the end of the year, and that is our virtual concert series featuring the Katie Thoreau Trio. We're going to be presenting them virtual concert, no audience, but they'll be live on our stage at the Museum of Making Music. We'll be broadcasting that to everyone out there who RSVPs on our website, museumofmakingmusic.org. It's a free virtual ticket, so you can register for that for free. Just visit our website, sign up, and then we'll send you that link, and you can join us on Friday, December 18th, 7 p.m. at Pacific time, where we'll be welcoming this wonderful, wonderful band leader and upright bassist Katie Thoreau, and then her trio will be performing then. Until then, if we don't see you again at Katie's concert, we hope you have a wonderful, wonderful new year, and we hope to see you again in 2021. All right, everyone. Thanks again so much. Have a wonderful weekend, and take care.